So I'm gonna try and take some ink out of the can with my little homemade palette knife. And so again, remember that we scrape the ink from the surface instead of gouging. And I'm going to put it on my piece of Mylar. Notice how the Mylar is taped down to a stiff, rigid surface. And then I've got some scrap magazine paper to help protect other areas that I don't want to get all inky. So I'm going to take a little bit more ink out of here, put it on the palette, and now I'm going to lay out a bit of ink so that I can roll it out with my brayer. So again, remember when you're rolling your ink out, you want to pick up the brayer and then set it down again and roll it. And remember, we want to keep our ink film contained. We don't want to spread it all out because that'll just make our ink film thinner. And so I'm going to add just a little bit more ink here. My little homemade scraper doesn't work quite as well as I like, but it'll do in a pinch. Again, just kind of rolling this out, kind of go from different directions. Okay, get that evened out before you roll it on your block. So you see how there's not any like goobers or anything in there. They look good, good sound, a good hiss. And remember to brush off your block before you apply ink to it. And so I think I'm good. I'm going to put my block over closer to my ink so that I can easily apply that. Remember, we go from different directions, and I try and make sure that I'm not hitting any of the the areas that are cut down. If it does, it's okay. You can clean it up. You can improve on regular newspaper if you want. And I'm looking at my block just to inspect and see if I've missed any areas with the ink. And I think I look good. So I'm going to go ahead and put my block over on my homemade jig here. So this is just books that are covered in magazine paper. I'm going to kind of snug my books and my blocks up in the corner here. Notice how I've got these little guides here so I can lay my paper down right up against these little lines here to give me 1.5 inch borders on either side. Okay, I have my paper all prepared for me. And you'll have to excuse me, this is going to be a little awkward trying to do this one-handed. But remember that you want to put the kozo paper smooth side toward the block. So what I would do is lay my paper up against this piece of tape and then this other one. And I'm just going to, so I've got the paper lined up with my tape and my block underneath. I want to kind of gently press down in the center here, and that stickiness of the ink is going to help to protect, or going to help to keep that paper staying still. Now next, if you're using a wooden spoon from the kitchen and you don't want to get ink or other bad things on it because you probably want to cook with it again, my suggestion is to find some sort of barrier paper so at least the ink is not going to be oil-based and cause any issues in the household. So I'm going to just use a piece of magazine paper here, and I'm going to start rubbing this. And so that will hopefully help prevent a lot of that ink that gets soaked through the paper from getting on my nice kitchen cooking spoon. So, of course, you can use a wooden spoon. This one is a bamboo. You can also use just a silver spoon like so. So, this I don't need to worry about so much with the ink because that can get washed off very easily. So, again, I am applying a fair amount of pressure. I'm being careful with these thin areas that go out. They don't need as much pressure, but they certainly need some. So I'm being very ginger, trying not to kind of fall off the edge of my cut area. And I'm just kind of going through each of these, each spot, so that I can make sure the ink transfers. And of course, this block is, or this paper is sticking to the block really well, but I want to just check underneath my block. And so I'm going to peek just to see how my inking is going. And so it looks like I need a bit more pressure there. Do you see how it's kind of what I would call salty? I want to get that nice and solid. So you can see in this area here how it's really nice and solid right there. That's kind of how I want the rest of it to look. So I'm going to make sure, you know, again, I don't want that paper to move at all because I'll get a double image. But I'm going to work on that spot a little bit longer. And so I keep going around on this block. And once it's done printing, I will show you a picture.